Welcome to the John freaking Muir Pod. Lace up those boots and sling on the pack for a romp through trails, short and long. With your host and Renaissance man, Doc. It's time to embrace the suck.
Welcome back to another week on the trail. I'm Doc, and this is the John freaking Muir Pod. Let's start off with a reminder. If you are enjoying the podcast, take just a minute and leave us a review on Apple Podcasts. And if you're not enjoying the pod, well, just go ahead and keep that to yourself. All right, on to this week's content. Well, this is a very special episode, and I know Chopper will enjoy that language, but really, this is a special episode. And I've decided that this one can't just wait for our regular weekly release. This is going to be a bonus episode that I'm going to release as soon as I've got it ready for consumption. Why, you ask? Well, let me introduce my co-host for this episode, and then we'll do a proper introduction of this week's guest. Welcome back to the John freaking Muir Pod, my semi-regular co-host and always irregular hiker, Chopper. How you doing, Chopper?
I'm great, Doc. How are you doing this evening?
Fantastic, fantastic. Really excited, as you may be able to tell.
Yeah, every episode is a special episode. You know.
But I mean it this time. I'm not just blowing smoke towards those other guests. This one is really special.
Like a Punky Brewster special episode type thing.
Punky Brewster, you are really dating yourself.
Sorry, keep going.
I'll keep going. All right, let's go right by that. Okay, well, this week's guest, if not by name, then certainly by his work, has cropped up time after time in this podcast. So many of our guests have been inspired by his film, and when I had the chance to bring on one of the creators of the incredible John Muir Trail documentary, Mile and a Half, I just had to take that shot. It is my pleasure to welcome to the podcast one of the producers and co-directors and the writer for the film, Jason Fitzpatrick. Welcome to the pod, Jason.
Thanks, guys. Thanks for having me.
So I really mean it.
This is a very special Hey, I should say, Chopper, this is a very special episode.
It is.
I understand that all of them are said to be special, but just so you know, this is an extra special one, I think.
And this is the first time I actually agree with Doc on it.
Oh, thanks. That's very kind of you.
And Jason, I really want to bring up something that, this is an inspiration for so many. And I was watching the film again today just to brush up and get ready for the episode. And I came to a part where Jen says in one segment that, she refers to the fact that John Muir actually brought artists out to the Sierras. And then those artists, based on their experiences out there, whether it was through painting or verse or prose, whatever it may be, they went on to inspire others and spark that interest in the outdoors, really just created this whole movement about getting out into our national parks and enjoying, what we have here. And I would venture to say that you, through Mile and a Half, have done the same thing. So many references to your film in all kinds of episodes. We ask people always, how did you get involved? Either how did you get involved with the outdoor cult and through hiking cult? And they'll talk about Mile and a Half, or I'll ask them, what did you do in preparation? And a lot of them say, just like we said in our episode, Chopper, when we were talking about how we got out there and got inspired, one of the first things we did was watch Mile and a Half. And it just really gave us the adventure bug. So congratulations on that.
Oh, thanks, man. That's very kind. And again, I think we're amazed and constantly flattered at the response, that the movie's gotten. It's been very rewarding in that way.
All right. Now, I also know that in the film, there was a brief discussion about trail names. My name is not Doc. It doesn't show that on the driver's license. And Chopper, he's got something else he has his paychecks made out to. Did you ever land on a firm and final trail name for yourself?
Yeah, Tank stuck.
Tank.
Because the first one they gave me was kind of silly because it was Emmett, which was their dog. And it was based on a joke that I had made about their dog that he only had two speeds, which were sleep and go. And I think really only like the first or maybe 2 nights in, I slept a lot and I went. And part of that was because I literally the day before I went to my friend's wedding, one of my best friend's wedding, and then drove straight from that wedding at like 11, up to the trailhead. So I had like no sleep the night before. we departed. So I was like a little underrested. So, and then the first couple nights, I was catching up on my sleep. But then after that, I think it was kind of normal. And you had to know their dog, so it didn't work. So Tank has stuck. And I actually had a nice experience. 6 weeks ago, I hiked with a hiker. I don't know if you guys know who Airborne is. He had yo-yoed the PCT, but we met up in southern Oregon in the Bend area and hiked together. And his dog, it was his dog's birthday, and his dog named Frank, his nickname is also Tank. So we had a hike with two Tanks together. So we're built roughly the same. Obviously, I'm taller as a human, but he's also quite a stout dog. So that was kind of fun. But yeah, Tank is the nickname, and that's the one that stuck.
Did that get confusing in conversation on that hike?
Not really, because I think it was pretty much Tank most of the way, most of, I think like most of the nicknames, we kind of had the one, once we landed on one, we stuck with it, so we mentioned a few of the ones. I think those were more like ideas of what the trail name might have been, but you got to fill out an hour and a half of the movie, right? So some of the things, some of the ideas that didn't land and we never really used made it just to kind of.
I was actually, being comedic and referring to your hike with Airborne. If, having two Tanks on the trail, if that got confusing, if you or the dog, inadvertently answered for the other one, in conversation. So.
Well, as your YouTube viewers know, that I'll tell you what, that dog is way better looking than I am. So I don't think it was very hard to make the difference. Yeah. Yeah.
I think they had Pace and Jason and Sasquatch as alternates.
Yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, I am very Sasquatchy. I think that one might have worked, but I also feel like that's such a cliche, kind of a cliched, right? Like how many any big dude, hairy dude is going to be kind of look like a Sasquatch, So I am actually a third Sasquatch, 2/3 Irish and then a third Sasquatch. So, it also, could have been kind of construed as like a racial slur. So I think, it's better that we stuck with Tank and not, not Sasquatch.
So on your mom's uncle's side?
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
Okay.
Well, on our trips, we had a Sasquatch. We just went with Big E because it was easier to say. The Sasquatch was just too hard to.
Yeah.
Same thing. Big guy, big beard.
Yeah.
It's just a natural.
Yeah. But it does really. I've always wondered. Isn't Bigfoot kind of sound like a racial slur by today's sort of PC standards? Because it's like a physical, just right. It'd be like Sasquatch is the proper term, and if you say Bigfoot, it's kind of racist. I don't know. Maybe
it's footism.
Yeah. I'm just trying to get canceled already. Here we go.
Don't be a footist.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Hey, I know you've listened to at least one episode, the Jeff Hester SoCal Hiker episode. So I'm not sure if you remember or not from that episode, but we do have a regular feature that I want to alert you to, and that is the Pro Tip Insight of the Week. And that is a segment towards the end where I will turn to you and I'll say, Jason or Tank, what is your pro tip insight of the week? What can you share with our listeners that's going to make their next outdoor adventure that much more epic? So don't be surprised when I ask you for that tip.
Okay. I'll be ready.
Okay. Very good. And then another feature we've been doing this season is the must bring gear review. Here's how it works. If you were to let a stranger pack your bag with pretty much generic gear for a multi-day hike, what is the one specific piece of gear you would insist on being packed? And if you've got a particular brand for that specific piece of gear, even better. So Tank, what's your must-bring piece of gear?
Snacks. Definitely snacks. They would have to pack snacks. Yeah.
We gotta be what brand?
Oh yeah. Okay. More specific. Gosh, I'm trying to remember the name. I am allergic to feathers. So you're going to get a long story here. Sorry. I know this is probably more of a quicker thing, but I'm allergic to feathers. So I can't do down, no down sleeping bags, no down puffies or any of that kind of stuff. I finally found a sleeping bag that I love. It's a Mountain Hardwear. I believe it's a Spark is the name of the one, but it actually crushes down quite small and it's really warm. It's actually warmer than the bag I brought with me on the JMT. I won't throw the name of them under the bus, but it's rated, that one is rated 10 degrees warmer. And I swear to God, this one is warmer and it actually packs small, which is nice. Cause before, I'd have to bring a giant pack regardless because my sleeping bag would take up the entire bottom half of it, regardless of no matter what I did, having to use the synthetic.
Nice.
Yeah, that bag would be the one thing. Yeah.
That's gotta be tough being allergic to down and being a thru hiker.
It's getting better. Because they have all this microball and the synthetic down stuff is actually getting quite good. But I usually don't. I try to avoid paying full retail for all my outdoor gear, as I'm sure many of you do. The only thing I ever did, and that was like what I thought was way more than I'd ever spend, was I got the first sort of micro ball North Face jacket that was like the first synthetic down one that was like packed super small and yet super warm. And now there's a bunch of competitors, so it's cheaper. But I paid someone, God, like $300 something for it. I'm like, oh my God, this is way more than I want to spend on a jacket. But it's great. I still have it. I still use it. It's fantastic. So I guess it was worth every penny. And it was nice to kind of know what it's like for all you people that can use feathers, what it's like for you guys to backpack,
All you fancy hikers.
Exactly.
Chopper, I don't know about you, but I was a little bit concerned about where this conversation was going, because he talked about snacks right off the bat, and then he went directly to feathers. I'm like, where, how, what's going on here?
Raw chickens. I'm telling you, bring raw chickens, full of protein. You might get salmonella, but hey, you might get giardia drinking the water up there. So who cares?
Nice. So what is your day job, Tank? What do you do to fund your adventures?
Mostly editing, in the entertainment industry. Sort of how we got connected here. Obviously, we have a mutual friend. I saw the last thing as a friend shout out, so he's going to get a shout out then.
Mm-hmm.
Teasing that. But I work as an editor, for a little bit of everything. I'm freelance now, particularly, so a little bit of everything from promos to trailers to web content to obviously documentaries to done feature, low budget feature films. I've done a little bit of everything, honestly, but editing is kind of my bread and butter. And that's, that's what pays for my outdoors. That's what fuels my desire for the outdoors, because I spend a lot of time in a dark room staring at a screen. So, yeah.
Nice. Now, you mentioned low budget feature films, and I saw Chopper's eyes light up. You're talking his language now. So anything we might recognize?
Not yet. The one I've done one basically, and it's still sort of out there in what's distribution hell. So hopefully it gets out. But it's a sort of like a wannabe Caddyshack. You know what I mean? I say that in a good way. It's like a raunchy golf comedy, basically. So Obviously the thing it's going to be compared to would be Caddyshack. But it's sort of, there's some distribution stuff going on with it. So hopefully it comes out. But as of now, it's not. But down the road.
So Tank did not reveal the title, so we just have to keep our eyes open for raunchy golf comedies, and then
look for my name in the credits.
The next one that comes out, we'll see if his name is in the credits. Very good.
Yep.
All right.
Put it on the watch list in IMDb.
Yeah.
Can you put it on the watch list just by putting raunchy golf comedy? Will that then alert you to any new releases coming out, or
I'll let you know how it works out?
Yeah, well, you think there'd be more of them, though, right? I mean, like Caddyshack is such an amazing masterpiece of of a film, and a comedy, and it's so great. And I mean, you'd think there'd be like 20 wannabes, and there really aren't many. You know what I mean? So I was kind of looking for other ones, and I a few straight to Caddyshack 2. I think there was like another third one. Maybe I'm not mistaken, there was like another third one where they didn't get any of the main people in it. But there's been not very many raunchy golf comedies. You have Tin Cup, but that was more of a drama, right? And
right. Happy Gilmore?
Yeah. That would definitely qualify.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. We've taken a big side trip down a side trail here. We're off the main trail. That's okay. It's good stuff. Good stuff.
Yeah.
So let's back up a little bit and talk about how you got involved in the outdoors, where your original connection was, your inspiration. What's your background, Jason? Where'd you grow up? Your family growing up, did they have outdoor activities as hobbies like car camping or hiking?
So hiking, yes. So I grew up I basically lived in Davis, California, was where I was sort of born and raised. And then I moved down to Southern California for high school, down in Orange County. My parents were great. My family was great about hiking and going. We would go to Yosemite almost once a year, or Sequoia. A lot of time up in on the coast as well, like Mendocino or Big Sur, places like that. So we did all kinds of those things and hike. They were not campers though. So my parents did not. I think I maybe camped, family wise once with my dad. There was I want to say maybe it was Indian Guides. It was something like that. It was when you're too young to be a Cub Scout, they had like a thing for that. And we camped in basically what was like a parking lot, you know what I mean, with some trees. I think that was the one time I camped with them, and they would rent the cabin. You know what I mean? They would we would always rent like a little house or a little cabin or a little hut and do that. And then we would do a lot of hiking. I did some hiking with my friends in high school and that kind of stuff a little bit, but I didn't, it's funny. I was really got back into hiking kind of by myself in college. And then weirdly, like right after college, me and a couple of my college friends all kind of just realized that we all wanted to backpack. And that was something we'd all always wanted to do, but it just, between the classwork and the drinking, it never came up in college. Right. So right out of college, I started backpacking with a group of friends. I'll throw some shout outs to my friend Matt Bouchard, who I actually hiked with last weekend with him and his 2 kids, which was awesome. My friend Ted Billick and my friend Chad Welton. And we just all started. I mean, it was kind of like we never really got all 4 of us on one trip, but it would be me with like any combination of those guys, and we just started going up. And kind of once I found the Sierra, it was all over. I wasn't making any money because I was a production assistant, which means, no money, but I had, gas was still cheap, it was like $1 a gallon, and it was probably cheaper for me to go backpacking because I had all the gear than it was to like, stay and drink with my friends. So I did a bunch of solo trips too. I just started going up to the Sierra all the time and, just started logging miles and doing all that. So that's kind of how I got hooked on it.
Now you're really dating yourself there. The gasoline is cheaper than the booze.
Yeah. No, it was though. It was. Well, the booze was a lot cheaper then too.
That's true.
But when you drank 10 of them, it was, that added up to more than a tank of gas. I had good gas. I had a Volkswagen that had good gas mileage too. So that helped,
Nice. And Jason, you probably won't be surprised to hear that you're not the first guest to come on the pod and say they got into hiking because it was cheap and it was all they can afford.
Yeah. Yeah. I still love that about it, honestly. You know what I mean? I still love that for next to nothing, you get to have these just amazing experiences that are, so fulfilling and so great. I guess there's like an initial cost, right? Getting geared up and getting all of that is a little expensive. And then of course, like most people, once you get into it, you become kind of gear obsessed a little bit, right? So you're obsessing over getting better gear and improving gear and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, gosh, I started out REI, like a half dome tent and I forget what the pack was called, but their giant pack, and I put weight, of course, carried 40 pounds too much, and just started going out there and it was great.
But it's funny, everybody's got the same story where it's like, okay, I've got all this cheap stuff, all this stuff I bought on sale, and there's this one thing I spent all my money on, whatever it is, like whether it's your jacket or your sleeping bag, but everybody's got one thing. I probably spent too much on this one.
Oh yeah. Starting out, the first upper class thing I got, and a million people had this bag, so some people will recognize this, was my North Face Cat's Meow. Like a million people had that sleeping bag. So I still have mine. It still works. It's still actually quite comfortable. It's still great. It's just, again, it's so, it's like this, it's massive. The size of the thing is crazy when you put it in a pack compared to like the, what they can do now with the better materials. So that was kind of my first splurge. And then I remember, if we're going to go super nerdy, I took my dividend, which was massive because I bought so much the year before, even if it was all cheap gear. And I think the first or second year backpacking, both of those were massive dividends. Yeah. I splurged for a smaller, more up. I got a Gregory pack, which was great. And nothing against the REI one, but the Gregory was definitely a step up in the comfort, and it was a little smaller, so I was less likely to overpack with it,
Yeah, Chopper, what did you overspend on in your gear assortment?
Overspend on,
or spend the most on? What did you say? I've got to have this.
Spent the most. I got a good the Osprey pack I have. I like, and it was worth a couple extra bucks. It was right when it first came out, and the salesman in REI did talk me into it, but it fit, and it was I could put all the stuff in it. So that's probably the one I splurged the most. Then everything else was pretty bottom of the barrel sale stuff that I've kind of added on to since then, but probably spent more money on that pack.
Yeah. Chopper, which one of the two of us is more obsessed in talking about gear?
I think that'd be you.
That's specifically why I added the gear feature at the beginning of each episode. I want to make sure I was able to touch on it at least once per episode. So
what was your big purchase, Doc?
I think it was a sticker shock on the pack, same thing. I ended up with a Duder pack, and it was great for the first trip, and actually first couple of trips. And then I was doing some searching around for a pack for Jukebox, my son, and bought him, I saw it on eBay. It was an auction deal. Got him a Granite Gear Crown 60. And once that was delivered, I'm like, oh, this is awesome. I need to get one of these. And so I actually found one at probably half the price of the Deuter pack. And that's what I've been using ever since. And I just love it. So
I thought you kept the new one and gave him the Deuter pack.
that's right. Yeah. No.
I should say, this is a slight humble brag here. I use Osprey now because they actually gave me packs. They sponsored my mile and a half. So, and then they sponsored the other short we did the year after, a couple years after, No Attack, which is like throwing a plug in too, which is a real nice film. So they gave us some packs for that, as for the sponsorship thing. So that was great. And they're so great and they're so comfortable. That's all I haven't needed, even though they're all a few years old now. I haven't needed to replace them. So yeah, pretty fantastic.
Doc's waiting for the sponsorships to kick in too.
Yeah, it's hard.
Yeah,
it's not an easy. That's a tough thing. It's a tough thing to wrangle.
Yeah, you beat me to it, Chopper. I was going to say the same thing. Mrs. Doc is always asking, "Hey, you got any sponsors yet?" And no, not quite yet. And I think I asked one of my prior guests, it might have been Eric Larson, who was he's the only person to have gone to the South Pole, North Pole, and top of Everest. Yeah, in one calendar year. And he said that it took him 5, 6, 8, 10 years to keep working hard and get a sponsor finally. So I told Mrs. Doc, just 8.5 more years.
Yeah,
on the pod, we'll get a sponsor. Don't worry.
To be fair, the problem is only 3 of those companies have money. You know what I mean? You have North Face, Patagonia, and REI, and the rest of them all honestly don't really have much money. It's not that they don't have any, but they don't necessarily have thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars to throw away on not throw away, but to do it. And many of them would probably like to do it. It's easier to get gear than it is money, I will say. So sometimes if you you offer to do sort of in kind, or if it's a project they think will present their projects, you can get gear. But it's a lot of hustle for not a lot. And if you already have the gear, sometimes I'm wondering, well, why do you do the hustle then? You know what I mean? Is it worth the trouble? But yeah.
For some of these bigger adventure people, it's the traveling that's got to be the most expensive.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, that adds up. Again, the nice thing, you're not paying for hotels for most of these trips, right? But I'll share one little anecdote on that. I did do a pretty amazing trip up to the Canadian Arctic on this island called Banks Island, which is one of the westernmost island in the Canadian Arctic archipelago. And it's a Canadian national park. I'm one of like 100 people ever to have visited this national park. It's that remote. But the charter flight, right, to get there, this is from Inuvik. So this isn't even the flights to get to Inuvik, which is, if you look on a map, in the middle of nowhere. It was $36,000 Canadian.
Oh,
so split obviously, but I mean, it was just that flight was around 4,000, depending on conversion rate, I forget, but it was over. My cut of that share was over $4,000 just for that leg of the flight to get up there. So yeah, I mean, you look at it and it's certainly not cheap.
So we're spoiled. We can drive to the Sierra, so it makes it.
I know, right? Yeah, right. No, super cool. Yeah.
So I've decided to take a different tack, and instead of continually trying to reach out to those 3 companies and getting rejected over and over again, I've taken to inviting unsuspecting documentarians onto the podcast to see if I can get some sponsorships that way.
Yeah. Well, hey, more power to you, man. I do get questions from filmmakers. People call me, and that is definitely one of the the biggest ones. And unfortunately, most of the questions I get, it's like they've tried a lot of things and it hasn't worked. So then they call me and thinking I have an answer. I'm like, no, we tried a lot of those things and they work to some extent, but not much. It's a very hard thing to do. It's hard to get money to do it, because think of it, it's such a desirable thing, right? So many people want to do it. So it's a tough game.
Yeah. Would you mind if I just put on the show notes that we are sponsored by Mile and a Half?
No, go for it.
Just because you've done a promo for us now. So
yeah, hey, there you go. Yeah, okay. No, that's all right. Yeah.
no financial incentive, but
no, by all means. Yeah. Or approved. You can have like the mile and a half seal of approval. Maybe like a little check sign.
Ooh,
with our logo over it. Yeah,
I like it. Yeah. See,
I'll have a quote at the bottom, and it'll be by mile and a half.
Yes, exactly.
Reviews.
Yeah.
It's how I get my mountain cred. I'm sponsored by Mile.
Yeah.
Very good. All right. Let's see the film. Let's get to the film. I want to take just a minute here. I want to read the IMDb summary of the film. Okay. Just to for those few listeners out there who have no idea what we're talking about on this episode. They've never seen Mile and a Half. Pause the podcast right now. Hit the pause button. Go watch it. Come back, and then you'll be in the loop here. So, but here we go. In an epic snow year, 5 friends leave their daily lives behind to hike California's historic John Muir Trail, a 211-mile stretch from Yosemite to Mount Whitney, the highest peak in the contiguous U.S. Their goal: complete the journey in 25 days while capturing the amazing sights and sounds they encounter along the way. Inspired by their bond, humor, artistry, and dedication, the group continues to grow to include other artists, musicians, and adventure seekers. Before they all reach the summit, hikers and viewers alike affirm the old adage: it's about the journey, not the destination. Mile and a Half is the feature-length documentary of that journey. And I know you've heard that description before, because I think the Muir Project probably wrote that description, and you are, I was going to say associated. Are you the creator of the Muir Project?
I don't think it's like there's any one of us that's kind of a creator.
Mm-hmm.
It was such a collaboration. We all worked so hard on it that it's kind of hard to say, I created it. I mean, I don't even remember whose idea it was. I mean, it was basically we needed to make something to make the movie, if that makes sense. And this came after. Before, again, we kind of didn't even know we were going to do what we had in mind was nothing like what we ended up with. We had no idea that's what it was going to be. Or it was going to be anything like that. So we had to come up with something, and that was just basically what we, the name we came up with. And, you have to name the entity if you're going to have a movie, right? Like, well, who writes the checks? Who do they hopefully someday write the checks to,
Right.
And that's where that came from. I'm sure. I remember meeting, there's so much of this stuff. It's like you just have no idea how much of this kind of stuff there is at the beginning, writing all these marketing lines, writing all these things, and that was a huge collaboration. All of us, we all pitched in, one of us would write it maybe, and then the rest of us would, send our notes and do whatever. And you care about every little detail and you work so hard on all that. And then within 2 years, you forget all that, you're like, oh yeah, well, it happened. Clearly it happened. Someone wrote that. It might've been me. I might've written the first verse. I don't know, Jen might've written it. I don't, I know she did a lot of that kind of stuff too. So to be honest, I have no recollection of who wrote that or even who came up with the Muir Project. But I mean, that was a name we all would have talked. I remember us talking about it as to who came up with the initial idea. Yeah, I will. If I'm going to give myself one pat on the back, I did have the idea. It was my idea to do the John Muir documentary. And that kind of interestingly came in a different way. The backstory on that was when I got my first HD TV, it was like a Sony rear projection, looked great at the time, it was kind of cool, but there was like no HD programming. This was maybe the early 2000s, right? And like they had like that Discovery HD channel, and they just kept rerunning the same like 10 things over and over again, like every day. The first day you're all excited, you're like, wow, this is amazing, the Canadian Rockies in HD. And then like 2 days later, like, oh, they're running it again. And then another 2 days later, oh, they're running it again. I'm like, well, hey, there clearly was like a need for content, right? And obviously I was backpacking a ton at that time, and I'm pretty sure it was probably when I did the Ray Lakes Loop that I saw John Muir Trail around that time. I'm like, oh wow, that would be like an amazing thing to do, an HD documentary on, because I hadn't done the whole thing at that time, but I'd done a lot of sections of it, on other hikes or crossed paths with it or being in those areas. I'm like, that'd be like the perfect thing to do it, But then by the time we did it, so mind you, this is the early 2000s, and then like it took us like 10 years before it finally happened. I mean, we did like a little test trip, Rick and Jen and I, probably 4 years maybe before we did finally did the trail, and just did some test shooting and, some thoughts of it, and of course the final thing was nothing like what we were kind of anticipating it was going to be. Plus by that time, everything was in HD. So there was no, that type of film was, we kind of realized it even going in that, that's not really the type of film that, is people are buying or need right now. So, it would have been a more straight-laced kind of nature-y kind of thing was kind of, I think, what we initially thought it was going to be. So straight-laced, nature-y kind of thing. I'm envisioning kind of one of those as I'm in the store looking at which set I'm going to buy. This is just kind of an unnarrated visual spectacular of the John Muir Trail. Yeah.
Is that kind of what the original idea was?
Yeah, no, absolutely. So like you go into Best Buy and next to the screen with Michael McDonald, you know, the great singer, the Doobie Brothers and whatever, who was on, for some reason on every display TV and every electronic store ever, there would be like our movie on the next TV over with like beautiful nature shots. That was kind of the initial idea, you know, and hopefully you'd be hearing the dulcet tones of, you know, Michael McDonald over, you know, through the great speakers they had in there. But you'd be looking at our nature thing. You know,
So the original
that was
goal
kind
was
of
to
the
sell
dream.
at the Best Buy. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah.
All of our younger listeners right now are frantically Googling Michael McDonald.
Yeah, right. Yeah, and it was probably like The Good Guys or Circuit City all that time ago, you know, which Best Buy killed, but you know, and now Amazon is killing Best Buy, so you know, hey, it happens.
names from the past: Good
Yeah.
Guys and Circuit City.
Yeah, and Federated. Are there any of the Federated people out there? That's like a way back one. That was like the 80s, I think, maybe into the early 90s. That was a SoCal one, at least. I don't know.
Yeah, you remember the Federated commercials?
Yeah,
The guy,
yeah,
the blonde guy was
with
his
the
name,
the mullet.
Yes, his name Fred Rated. Was that
Yeah,
you
Fred
said?
Rated.
Yeah.
Yeah. We got some audio file crossover here.
Yes. Okay. So your cast, the 5 friends that the IMDb summary refers to. We've got you.
Mhm.
We've got Rick and Jen, who are married.
Mhm.
Correct. We've got
Yes.
Durand,
Mhm.
and Z is the 5th one.
Yes. Yeah.
Yes.
Z was the initial one. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And how did the 5 of you come to be? How did you know each other? And how did this idea come up to say, hey, let's go pack everything on our backs, plus dozens and dozens and dozens more pounds of camera equipment and haul that across the Sierras? That sounds like a good idea.
Yeah. Well, so Rick and I worked, not so much, we worked in the same place, not so much together, like we didn't interact with each other professionally when we worked together, but we worked at CBS. This would be like mid 2000s, maybe. And they loved him and Jen had done backpacking before and they loved it. And then just he found out that I did it, you know, and through that we ended up doing a ski trip together. To this place called Ostrander Ski Hut, which is amazing, and everyone should try to go if they can. It's 10 miles in the backcountry in Yosemite. At the foot of this lake, there's this old ski hut that was built in the 30s. It's this beautiful stone structure way out in the wilderness. So they came along with I actually think the first time I met Jen is when like the cars, you know, showed up that morning to drive up to do that trip. So that was like the first trip we did together, and it was really hard because it's a really hard trip. But, you know, everyone had fun, you know, still no one, you know, you realize, okay, these are the kind of people you can, you know, slog with, you know, and we did a couple trips after that. And I think on that is probably when I first introduced that whole idea of doing the documentary on the John Muir Trail. Rick and I actually did collaborate on a lot of sort of fun, creative short film projects back then, before then too, you know, because we were sort of some of the two guys there that would actually do that, make our own little short films and make our own things for fun, you know, just because that's what we wanted to do. So I think it kind of just naturally fit that way. And because we all love backpacking and we all love the wilderness, you know, doing that kind of thing and making films, it all sort of naturally came to be that way.
Nice.
Oh, and then I should add Durand. So Durand worked with Rick on some commercial shoots, and, you know, he found out he backpacked. Z was the most random. Z was a friend of Rick's, and the only reason I say the most random because he had never really backpacked before. Spoiler alert. Yeah. Spoiler alert on that one. So that he was kind of the random one in that sense, but great guy, obviously. And, you know, we all are still good friends. We all still talk. So yeah, it's, you know, it was great. It was a very bonding experience too.
Absolutely. You can tell.
Yeah.
And I feel, I don't know about Chopper, but I feel like I'm friends with all of you because I've watched the documentary so many times. And actually in preparing for this episode, I watched it again today. You know, I spent an extra half hour this morning getting up a little bit early before work, watched some of it, came home for lunch, watched some more of it, got home from work and watched the rest of it as I'm eating dinner and getting ready to turn on the record button here. So I just feel like all of you are close friends. So Chopper, you have the same feeling, or?
Yeah, and it's I think that's one of the reasons why everybody who watches it enjoys it so much, because it's not just one person doing a documentary. Most of the things you see like on YouTube now, it's one person videotaping themselves, and maybe they have a couple people they talk to. But you guys took so much time and care to get to know everybody, and like the interviews, well, you know, the sunset and the beautiful rock behind it. There was so much time put forth to, you know, learn everybody, understand who they are, even just the folks you pick up on along the way, you know, on the trail. Like all of a sudden they're in the movie, they're in the interviews, and I think that's the difference between Mile and a Half and the other ones. Not that they're not good quality, it's just there's just so much care, and you sit and enjoy the people. You get to know them differently. It's so much more casual, and for me, that's what really resonates when I watch it. It's like you were saying, Doc, I know that person. That person looks really familiar. I know the way they're feeling. I know the way you know they're reacting.
I think our biggest goal though was to try to make it feel like what the trip felt like. You know what I mean? Right. So I think that, you know, that was what we did. I guess that was that, and the one thing I will say, audio. People underrate how important audio is in these things, and you know, I don't mean to call anyone out, but a lot of them, it's like you have a camera mic from 10 feet away and it's windy out, and you know what I mean. It just, I mean, so I always, as much as it pains me to give a sound guy credit, and even more painful to give Durand any credit, no, having him along was actually really huge. And even like maybe subtle things you might not notice, like all the sound he captured. It's very subtle because it's living underneath everything else, but it adds such a depth to the film that a lot of hiking films don't do. And it's very difficult and actually kind of expensive, which is another thing that maybe, you know, having professional people do that is a huge advantage, and, you know, and helped us quite a bit, you know, so, cause everything looks good now. Cameras are so good and so easy to use now. Everything looks good. You know, if it doesn't, it's like, wow, you know, it's kind of bad, because it's pretty easy to get stuff to look good now compared to what it used to be.
I think the other difference is there was 4 of you who were like the artists creating it.
Yeah.
Again, if
collaborative.
You go to the other ones, it's one person, and they're doing their best, and they're trying to cover everything. They're moving cameras and walking by them, but I think all of you working together is what separates this movie from other ones.
Yeah. Thank you. That's very kind. Yeah, I appreciate it.
For our listeners who are not watching this on YouTube, it was interesting that Tank visibly winced as he gave credit to a sound editor. So he was in pain when he said that.
Yeah, camera guys, sound guys, you know, it's a battle. But actually too, also like the whole, to give it even Durand more of a plug, you know, we kind of, when Z, again, spoiler alert, when Z backed out, Z was supposed to be sort of the guy filming all the behind the scenes and the, you know, the other stuff, right? Rick and I, the artistes, right? The artsy guys were going to set up all the pretty shots. You know, he was going to get all of just the other stuff. And when he left, you know, we basically had this camera. We're like, well, here, have it, Durand, you know. And a lot of the stuff he filmed he was just filming all the goofing around camp stuff, which ended up being, you know, such a big part of the storytelling aspect of the film, you know, and we probably wouldn't have had that. Trust me, none of us would have behaved. There are parts in that movie when I watch it, I cringe. It's just what a fool I am. Still to this day. I mean, it's great. I mean, it's real, so it's important to keep it in there, but you're just like, oh God, I'm such a dork, you know. But those moments are the ones that kind of make it real, right? And kind of create, you know, and made it. And he was the one that captured a lot of those moments. You know, otherwise I don't think we would have had a movie. Certainly not what we ended up with, you know.
Yeah, Tank, you mentioned this in the film. I think you said that there's no hiding. There's no hiding on the trail. I mean, who you are comes out on the trail. So I mean, if you were dorky on the trail, I'm sorry, man. You just, there's little dorkiness to you.
Yeah, no, there's not a little dorkiness. There's like a massive like dumpster full of dorkiness to me. There's no shortage of things that I dork out on, you know. You know, luckily dorks are like more popular now. You know, those of us who were dorks in the 80s, the 80s were tough if you were a dork, you know, in high school and whatever. Now it's like everyone's kind of a dork. You know, the world is made for dorks now, so it's a little easier. You know, it's easier to be one. But yeah, no, I'm proud of my dorkiness now.
Very good. Hey, we're going to go to a quick break. When we come back, we will continue to explore the boundaries of dorkiness in the wild. Also get into some more nitty gritty of filmmaking and the actual trail. So stay tuned for that. We'll be right back.
All right, this is Jason Fitzpatrick. I'm a producer, a director, a writer, an editor, photographer, probably best known for Mile and a Half. And you're listening to the John freaking Muir podcast.
And welcome back. We're talking to Jason Fitzpatrick, also known as Tank. He's the co-producer, co-director, and writer of the outstanding JMT documentary Mile and a Half. Now, Tank, really enjoyed the artistic flair of the film, with different segments being introduced with John Muir quotes, with the graphics, with the mileage and the elevation change, and just a really polished feel to the film. Was that your under your area of expertise, or was that Jen, or how did that all come about?
No, we actually went to somebody outside of us to do the drawings. I think Rick is an okay drawer, but probably not necessarily on what would have been good enough for this. And I don't know that he had the bandwidth with all the other work we were doing on it, and supporting ourselves and that kind of stuff. We actually had all the journals and all the drawings were done by an artist named Colby Kirk. Condor is his trail name. You might recognize him, and funny enough, we passed him on the trail. So he was doing the PCT northbound while we were going southbound, and we crossed paths on the Golden Staircase on the John Muir Trail, which was kind of cool. He released this amazing video, and you can find it. I think it's called like Condor's PCT Journey. And some of you who have been watching this or been paying attention for years might remember it. He did like a selfie a day of himself on the PCT. And he did a whole thing where it's just a sequence of all the pictures, one a day of the whole thing, of the PC. He didn't do the whole thing, but he didn't finish it, but he did everything he did, and it was really neat. So it was fantastic. And that came out kind of around the same time as our, the first thing we released, which was a music video for Opus Orange, who did an amazing job with all the music. And we kind of got in touch that way. And then I think we just, through social media and whatever, hey, we talked to him, we talked, I think he and Rick had a little conversation and all that kind of stuff. And through that, we saw his journals, these amazing journals he does. And, we met him through that and said, hey, we kind of were looking for something a little different or a little unique, like rather than doing like motion graphics, which there are some in there. And we had a great, amazing motion graphics guy who's also an amazing outdoors person, Mike Kelly, did all of that stuff for us. So, but the actual drawings are probably what you're thinking of when you view it. Like you're saying that all that was done by Colby Kirk. So.
I love the map you guys have. I think you have it on your Muir Project website with all the altitude going up and that. Is that
we had that drawn. Because, there were a bunch you could get on the web, but, we wanted to, you try to, I guess one thing I'd say is you try to sort of create an aesthetic, right? And you want to kind of stick to that aesthetic. So I think, Rick, maybe, that might have been Rick's idea now that I recall, to have Colby draw that out too. I don't, again, a lot of that stuff is a blur now, but.
I look at it, I saved a copy of it on my computer.
Oh, cool. Yeah. That's very neat. Yeah, Colby's a great guy, a really wonderful guy too. So,
is that elevation map, is that available for purchase on the Muir Project website?
Gosh, I don't even know. It's been a while since I've been in the Muir Project website. It's been a couple of years since I've been doing it.
Sorry.
Yeah, no, it's all right. Honestly, I mean, that's fine. Don't worry about it. And have at it. We do still sell like DVDs and things. Still sell, and I know we still have stuff. So if you want to go to the store, it's still open. That's obviously slowed down now that it's been out for a while, but
it's only like beer can huggers and
exactly,
all t-shirts.
Probably off-size t-shirts and and some posters and I don't know, whatever people didn't want from all the stuff we threw out there on that store.
So you guys went. What year was that? Did you guys did the trip?
10 years ago we did it. 2011. So the 10th the 10th anniversary of our trip is this year. So yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
Do you have any special events planned to commemorate the 10th anniversary?
We it's funny because now we're just now talking about it because obviously we did the trail in July, so it's a few months away. So we're starting to talk about it. We haven't come to any decisions yet. Again, the movie came out a few years later, so that's kind of maybe more the real 10-year anniversary. So we will do some things. We might be more, I don't know. COVID is kind of weird. You know what I mean? Like, so much of the joy of that project, at least when it came out, was like, we did a lot of our own screenings that we put on, and we kind of took it on the road, and Opus Orange would play live music before it and all that. And it was just, that was so much of the joy of it. And obviously this year that's not going to happen. I mean, maybe there's a tiny chance that it would be okay through the vaccines or whatever by then, but Probably not. So I don't know. We'll see. Something will be done. It will be commemorated. I don't know what yet. And we haven't made that decision. And we literally just started talking about it last week. So who knows? But I will say with the 10-year thing of the movie, so in like 2 years, definitely we'll do something big then. Hopefully we'll do some kind of big fun, but I don't even know what can we do. Can even all of us get in a room together? I don't even know. You know what I mean? So it's kind of it's kind of an odd year, but it will be commemorated. We will do some fun stuff for certain. But yeah, COVID might have, made us more apt to celebrate the 10-year of the movie release as opposed to the 10-year of the trip,
Well, may I suggest something? And if this catches fire, you just put my name in the credits, at the end.
Okay.
That's right. I'm proposing a sequel to Mile and a Half. We call it Mile and Three Quarters.
Could be. Yeah.
What do you think, huh?
Yeah, I don't know. We hope to do something again. We try to talk about it. It's just coming up with the right idea, the right time. And Rick and Jen have a daughter now. Duran has 2 small kids, and you know how life is. It's really hard to find the timing to do that. And the amount of work. The trail was kind of the great part, right? The hard part was the next 2 years of having a second full-time job. Right. Making the movie and getting it out. So I don't know. I think eventually something hopefully we'll at least do another short. Do something else, have some fun. We'll do some video, something for the 10-year, if that's this year or 2 more years down the road. Well, something will be done. I don't know what yet. We're still just starting to talk about it. So, I don't know, hopefully. But, it's not that we don't want to work together or we don't want to do trips together. We do trips together, but usually it's more just like we can sneak away for a weekend, and it's probably been a couple years since we've been able to do that. So, just with, real life and all that kind of stuff. So they'll go on a trip, I'm busy, I'll go on a trip, they're busy and that kind of stuff. So you said you've done a lot of sections of the John Muir before. I mean, the snow of the year you guys were making that video was insane. Yeah. I mean, it's a completely different experience. And obviously at the time it was hard and a couple times terrifying, but it certainly, I think it made, obviously the movie greatly profited from that aesthetically, just how much more beautiful it was, I think, with the snow. I mean, it's beautiful already, but there's a certain beauty and a different beauty than the way a lot of people experience it because of the snow. And obviously it made, it made it so much more hard that I think it made the story, there's a certain much added credibility to the adventure side of it, as hard as it is, even without snow. Having like Mather Pass, my God, I mean, having to kick, having 60 plus pounds on your back and having to kick straight up in the snow and then like scramble, rock climb straight up on like these crumbling shelves of rock. I mean, that's terrifying. Well, the fear of injury is what every time we're walking through the snow sections and sections, I couldn't imagine. And me, as I said, I'm the Sasquatchy one, plus 60 pound, 70 pound pack. I was post-holing left and right, and that's scary in some places. I mean, you can go pretty far down if depending. You can't get back up. Yeah, I had to get helped out of at least 1 or 2 of those, just because I had all this weight on my back and I fell so deep that up during Muir Pass once in particular. I mean, I went down to like my waist. It's like, how do you climb out of that? I mean, you're like you're like trapped in there, so I had to get helped out. So yeah.
So 2011 was a 200% snow year compared to normal, right? Yeah. And you hiked in the aftermath of that. And I think it's just a testament to never growing bored with a particular trail, especially in these Sierras, because the conditions can vary so much from year to year. Chopper, when you and I hiked with Buddy, did the southern half of the JMT, that was 2015, and it wasn't particularly a heavy snow year that the year before. It was super low, as I recall. It was a drought. Yeah, well, that was the drought year we hit, and then I think it was like 5-6 years of drought years after that. Yeah. So and then before we finally got some snow. Yeah. And then Jukebox and I, my son, we hiked it in 2017, that same stretch, the southern half, and it was one of those heavy snow years. And it was to the point where I was pretty concerned before we left, because I had heard about these river crossings and ranger notices, and I was trying to do all my research. A bridge may have been washed out, maybe it wasn't washed out, and so a lot of those scenes from mile and a half really struck a chord with me, because I remember some of those river crossings. And I particularly remember going up Forester and seeing that same level of snow that you guys were trekking through. It felt like an Arctic expedition at one point. And I've got pictures. It looks like we're on the side of Everest.
Yeah. No, it was pretty cool. It was kind of funny because, we had that second, if you watch the movie, like that's when the musicians had joined us, our friends had joined us, and that was their first pass, and it's the highest pass other than, Trail Crest by Whitney. So we had been over how many 14 passes? I forget how many there are now, but we had been over all these other ones. So for us, it was, don't get me wrong, you're still like, yeah, this is pretty hard and whatever, but they were kind of, we were a little bit more ready for for the experience of being in the snow and traveling than they were, and they were I think it freaked them out pretty good,
So I can't imagine going northbound where that's what you hit first is Trail Crest and then Forester. Well, it's all downhill from there. So
yeah. Well, I did do another short documentary called Unsupported on the people who go for the fastest known time on the John Muir Trail.
Those people went up.
And almost all of them go northbound because it's a net down instead of a net up because, you start at Whitney and you finish in Yosemite. But obviously if you think you can do the FKT on the JMT, you're pretty fit. So doing all the hardest stuff in the beginning isn't that hard, but otherwise, it's obviously hard enough coming the other way. And, it's the lower elevation. And, Donahue Pass is like 12,000, I think, right? If I'm not mistaken. But then it's most of you work your way up with the passes, kind of get higher after that. So, yeah.
So what is the FKT on the JMT?
Oh, it's absurd now. It's under 3 days.
Yeah.
I did it on the unsupported record, which is still over 3 days. It's like 3 days and 6 hours. But they're both, it's Europeans hold both now. I think Aurelian Sanchez is one of them. I think he's the unsupported one, and I think it's at like 3 days, 6 hours around that. And then I'm forgetting his name. That's terrible. But the guy who did it supported, it's under 3 days now, which if you can even imagine doing that in that distance like that. We did it in 24 days. So you can imagine doing it that, it's just staggering. That blows my mind, and when I did the doc, Andrew Bentz had it, and his record was 3 days and 11 hours. So even that, is just crazy, hard to believe.
That's nuts. You're basically running for 18 hours a day or longer?
Yeah.
That's insane.
Absolutely. Yeah. All credit due to the supported one, but the supported one, they have pacers, they have people handing them food, they have people doing the navigation. To do it, to push yourself that hard, and the level, they all have hallucinations, like crazy hallucinations and all kinds of nutty, crazy stuff. It's a crazy endeavor for sure.
Well, according to Google, unsupported is your friend Arlen Sanchez at 3 days and 3 hours and 55 minutes.
Yeah.
And supported is Francois Deharden. I'm probably pronouncing that wrong.
Mm-hmm.
2 days, 19 hours, and 26 minutes.
Wow.
That's insane.
Right? So that's 211 miles and under 3 days. And that's not like you're running flat on a street. 37,000 foot net gain, I think. There's varying numbers on that, but at least that's close, Oh,
and it listed as north to south and south to north. So the north to south is unsupported is 4 days and 8 hours.
Mm-hmm.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
It just shows you how much harder it is. It's almost twice as long.
Yeah.
You'll also probably be happy that when I Googled FKT John Muir Trail, it says watch Unsupported, a documentary about 4 FKT attempts.
Oh, cool. Very nice.
Nice.
Yeah, watch it, everyone.
That's right.
I think, that's become a much bigger thing now, trail running. I did it. It wasn't that long ago. I only finished it like 2 or 3 years ago, but it wasn't as much interest as I kind of thought there would be. And then you kind of, now these things are getting out there, and there was a much more viral thing, and there's far more eyeballs on it than there were when I released it. I think I came out with it 2 years too early. So.
Yeah, that group is a niche of a niche of a niche.
It really is. It absolutely, even more so than say thru hikers or any other kind of, and it's also, they're just kind of a different breed. You know what I mean? They're just a little bit different than the rest of us, and they're not really, I don't know. it was funny, you know, here, all these people are in this movie and I'm like, hey, share it, you know? And they're like, okay. And, but they don't, you know, they even the people in it weren't as like, sort of, I think, as excited as other people might have been who've been a part of the movie. They were all amazing and so welcoming and so great about it. But I don't think it was like, you know, for them, I don't know. It's just a different kind of.
Just what I do, yeah.
Yeah, they're just wired different. You know, they're all kind of interestingly, like all of them come from like a scientist background. You know, 2 of the people in the movie have PhDs in astrophysics. You know, one from Harvard, one from I think Caltech. You know, my safety schools. So, you know, but, you know, and then nurses, they all kind of have that weird kind of sciencey thing. Not all of them, but most of them do. You know what I mean? So it's kind of an interesting thing, I thought, you know, the things.
Like you look at any cross country teams, that's all made up of kids like that.
Oh yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah. That's definitely a thing.
Yeah, I didn't run cross country.
No, neither did I.
I've had a few ultra runners on the podcast on various episodes, and they are fascinating people to talk to, and you know, constantly trying to find their limit. And you know, 201, when I've asked them, have you found your limit? Nope, haven't found it yet. I'm still looking. But I had the real pleasure of talking to Michael Wardian in season 2, episode 1 of the John Freakin' Muir pod. And I discovered in the interview, I obviously had not done my research well enough, because I discovered in the interview that he had participated in the Barkley marathons, which, as Chopper knows, is an obsession of mine. So,
yeah. So, well, I'm actually sort of helping out on a documentary now about Legend. Do you guys know Legend, who Legend is? He got the FKT on the Colorado Trail last year. The year before, he did like the Arizona Trail and the Long Trail. I think those FKTs have been grabbed since. But he was supposed to do he's become a good friend. He's a really awesome guy, super funny, crazy. You should check him out. The Free Outside is his handle if you want to look into his stuff. But he's certainly a very entertaining person to follow and a really good guy. But he was supposed to do it last year before COVID canceled it, you know, and he'd been training like crazy and all this stuff, and then it didn't happen. So, you know, consolation prize, he got the Colorado FKT, unsupported FKT on the Colorado Trail. But
and he's Legend.
Yeah.
Legend. The Free Outside.
The Free Outside is like his handle. So like if you go to Instagram, it's the Free Outside. And he wrote a book called The Free Outside about as well. So yeah.
And so should I drop the name Jason Fitzpatrick or Tank?
I think Jason Fitzpatrick would be the one he'd probably recognize.
Okay. All right.
If you say Tank, he's going to think of Airborne's dog, Frank. He'll be like, you'd be like, Airborne's dog is, you talk to his dog can talk. What's going on? You know.
The best interview I've had.
Yeah. No, I met him and Airborne at the same time. They're good friends as well. So that's kind of part of a circle. Yeah.
Nice. Now I know when Chopper and I did the JMT, just half of the JMT, not the full thing. Yeah. Our packs were weighing in at what, 40 pounds, 42 pounds?
Yeah, right at 35, 40, that range.
Lightweight, weight weenies.
You guys are like 75 pounds, 65
yeah.
pounds.
Yeah, I probably close to 80 at the 2 big loads, you know, when we had the big long week stretches without resupply. Yeah.
That just sounds painful.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, probably could do it a lot lighter now with, you know, camera gear's lighter and better. I mean, luckily I've got, you know, even just in 10 years, like the gear has gotten better, you know, the synthetic stuff has gotten a lot better. So I could definitely travel lighter and whatever. But you know, when I'm still, it's hard because, you know, photography is kind of my thing now too. And it's so hard to not bring lenses, and lenses are not light. You know what I mean? So like, no matter what I do, there's like probably 10 plus pounds of camera gear coming with me. So no matter how light I get my pack, otherwise, I did finally get like you know, they gave me the ones they gave me for No Attack up in Alaska that Osprey was kind of to give me is, I think it's a 35 liter or 40 liter. So it's pretty small. Right. So like anything under like 3 days and less, that's what I bring, you know what I mean? And, you know, so my gear has gotten tinier and tinier and tinier, you know, like I was using a jet boil. Now I use this Sea to Summit collapsible kettle. I don't know if you guys have seen that. I use that in a tiny little Snow Peak stove. So like my kit, you know, my cook kit is like this really narrow, tiny little thing. And, you know, a lot of it is bulk as well as weight, you know. So I've, you know, that tiny little Spark, I hope I'm saying that right, from Mountain Hardware. I finally have a small sleeping bag, you know, put my tent, strap that to the bottom, and, you know, so I could traveling much lighter, but no matter what, with the camera gear, it's like add 15 pounds. So no matter how low my base weight is, I'm lugging but that was something else. I mean, I had a Gregory Denali pack is what I took on the JMT. That's like 6,000 cc, just mass. I forget what that is, but it's like the biggest one. It's like their mountaineering expedition pack, and it was pretty full almost the whole time. So,
two small children in it.
Yeah, exactly. And then, bring 7 days of food, right? And, everything else, batteries, it adds up.
So mile and a half has become a big part of trail prep for a lot of the hikers out there. Source of inspiration. They want to hike the JMT. They're gonna check this film out and take a look at what they're in for. And so a lot of people have seen the film, but I want to give our listeners and viewers a real treat here and see if you have any behind the scenes stories from the trip that we might not be aware of. Were there any escapades that went on during the trip itself that didn't actually make the film?
The cutting room floor.
That's right.
Well, I'd have to go back and watch some of this stuff. The original version, the original cut of it was around 15 to 20 minutes longer than the final, and nothing got really cut out that didn't need to. But it was actually quite a bit, I don't know if racy might be a strong thing, but there was a lot more swearing, a lot more adult humor, and a lot more of that in. But what happened was when we released the first video and we started doing our Kickstarter campaign and getting a lot of exposure that way, we started getting messages and things from kids. You know what I mean? Like a lot of little kids, and we're like, well, you know what I mean? And we're like, well, yeah, there's no reason, none of it. There was some funny stuff, but I don't think there was anything that was so amazing that it necessarily needed to stay in the movie, But we made, we decided we did want to make it something that would be pretty good for families. And actually on the DVD, we even have an audio version you can turn on that has less swearing in it, and we weren't that bad, but, we did swear. There's a few swear words in it, nowhere near as many as were uttered on the trail. I can tell you that.
Well, for your 10th anniversary, you can release the director's cut and have everything.
Yeah. No, that's another thing. I mean, the system we used we edited it on Final Cut 7. Yeah, which is no longer in existence. It's been dead for about 10 years, or not 10, but probably 5-6 years. So like no computer now can even run it. They don't support it. So we'd have to find an old computer. I mean, we still have all the media, so I guess we could probably figure out some way of, whatever. But I don't think Rick or I have the time anymore to go back and dig all that up and find all that and go through it all. If we do something, we'll probably want to do something new. You know what I mean? A new experience, and maybe find some oldie but goodie stuff.
That's too bad. I had another contribution for you. I was gonna say you could call the director's cut 10th anniversary director's cut mile and a freaking half. Only not freaking.
Yeah, not freaking though. Yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah, I'm trying to think of. I know there were probably some good moments that didn't make it, and some funny things. Gosh, some of the conversations Durand and I had were just so bad. I'm ashamed of them 10 years later, but obviously that's, I think because Rick and Jen were married, this was especially in the little period where we lost Z. There was maybe before Dave and Kelly joined us, and then Kaz and everyone else. I think it was just Durand and I, and then they were a couple. So Durand and I were together, and we're both, definitely like off-color humor. So there was some.
Couple now. Yeah.
There were a few. I don't know what rating this podcast is, so I don't know how graphic to get.
Well, it depends. It depends on the guest. I have no problem if we dip into that range. I'll just put the E on that particular episode. So
okay, no, let's keep it family. I mean, the whole project has been about families and kids, and we wanted that on some of that. So we'll keep it
far be it from me to besmirch your squeaky clean reputation, Tank.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate that.
All right. Hey, what can you give me a top three favorite parts of the trail, of the John Muir Trail?
Ooh, yeah, gosh, there's so many, right?
I know. Can you narrow it down to 3? It's tough.
Yeah, I think my favorite part was like the upper palisade and like the golden staircase. I don't know. I think we hit really good conditions there too. So the weather was nice. Getting up to the lake, we didn't hit snow until Mather right after that, which was terrifying. But, so that part I thought was just absolutely stunning. And I love the remoteness of that. You know what I mean? Like how far that was like, it's deep in the southern part of it. So you're really far away from anything. Obviously like Evolution, Meadow, Basin, Lake, that whole area is really gorgeous. The Cascade Valley, it gets lost a bit in some of the other bigger name places, but coming down from like Purple Lake, when you hike down into that meadow and that valley, I mean, you're kind of running along it, and from above it's nice, but man, once you can kind of get down in there, and then you do the crazy bridge, that crazy big bridge crossing, it's escaping me at the moment, but anyone that's done it knows what I'm talking about. That area,
turn off to VVR.
Yeah, or before that, but you kind of go up to Squaw Lake. Was where we camped that night, but hiking down through in there, I think again that we just hit really good conditions. We were so ready for anything without snow that those I'm kind of listing are some of the snow-free areas that we were able to hike. And anything above that, there's probably just jaw-dropping stuff, and it was jaw-dropping for us, but it was snow, so it's kind of hard to maybe it doesn't live in the memory quite as much as as other places do. But I mean, honestly, it's just also gorgeous, really. There's not really like a boring or like ugly stretch. There's a little something for everyone, and then it also kind of surprises you, like, you're coming down between, say, Forester and, and the turn off to Crabtree. That area is so kind of unique, right? It's like this weird, almost desert up there that you haven't seen and you haven't been through anything like there, but it's its own kind of unique ecosystem, and it's just different and kind of spectacular and beautiful. So that would be those. But I'll stick with Upper Palisade, that stretch of Evolution, and Cascade Valley. I think we're.
I think you guys touch on it. I don't remember who said it, but it's around Golden Staircase. It's like you have to work to get there.
That's me. I think that was my. Yeah, that was really what stuck to me. Like you really had to earn. Right. It's the kind of place that you have to earn it. Yeah, I have a friend who's like, well, can I just drive to any of those? And it's like, no, you really got to work and get out there and go do it. I mean, there's some nice places you can drive through, and there's places that sort of, there are a few places I think that kind of touch the level of scenery and whatever, but the feeling of being away, you really can't replicate, I don't think, in anywhere you can drive through. The closest place in California I can think of is Mineral King. I don't know if you guys have ever been to Mineral King.
Oh, yes.
That's where my name Chopper comes from, Mineral King.
Okay, yeah, that road is so bad that, you don't get the RVs, you don't get many people. Right. You have that little resort, Silver City, I think, if I'm not mistaken. But that's even 10 miles from the valley. So you can kind of get away there, and camping there feels remote, right? And you don't really have the party crew up there. I don't think they're going to want to drive that road. So that's close. And scenery wise, like, you have Tenaya Lake and Convict Lake and, June Lake, and those are all stunning and gorgeous. It's kind of neat to be able to drive to them because you can see them, right. But it kind of doesn't match the feeling of having hiked being 3 days walk or 2 days walk away from, a road or from, a house. Or
like I said, all those lakes are beautiful, but because you can get to them and anybody can get to them, it's just not the same.
No, it isn't. You know what I mean? And they're beautiful. They are beautiful and they're cool. North and South Lake.
But,
North and South Lake and Bishop, up Bishop Pass is really cool too. Places you can drive through, if you want to see kind of the stuff we talk about or see kind of what it looks like. But yeah, it's not going to be the same as if you hike to it. That's for sure.
Because we all know the same things. When you come back, the pictures just don't really do it. I mean, even the great equipment you guys had, it's just not the same.
No, you can't match the feeling. You do what you can, but it's kind of impossible.
Yeah, I'm going to give credit to a former guest on the podcast, Jay Wilson, who threw out the legendary phrase that I think sums it all up, is that there's a frustration with 1,000-word pictures in million-word places.
Yeah,
so you're in a 1,000,000-word place and you only have a 1,000-word picture, and it does not do it justice.
No, it doesn't.
Yeah. And we kind of glossed over Chopper and his nickname. I want to make sure you get the full story here.
How did that happen?
He was stuck between Black Rock Pass and Sawtooth Pass on Mineral King Loop with altitude sickness.
So the ranger decided, actually it was the hospital at Visalia, decided that I should be pulled out by helicopter because I couldn't walk out without going over a 12,000.
Sure, yeah. Oh man. Don't you know that if you catch and drink the blood of a marmot, that cures altitude sickness?
Oh, now
Yeah.
you tell me.
Yeah.
You should have had this podcast years ago.
Yeah. You'd have a different nickname that was less embarrassing.
Yeah. Be more
And are you Doc because you revived him or resuscitated him as he was dying of altitude sickness? Is that?
Yeah, you remember that scene from Pulp Fiction with the hypodermic right in the middle of the chest?
Yeah. Breastplate. You got to break the breastplate.
That's right. I took my time with the Sharpie and I marked the dot, where I had to go, and boom.
He was taking selfies of himself laughing while I'm lying in the wood.
Yes, that sounds about right. I think me and most of my friends would be about the same thing. So yeah.
He's like, "Are you gonna die?" "No, I'm good." "All right, we're gonna go goof around."
Yeah.
And Tank, I can't tell you how disappointed I was when they didn't strap him to the skid of the helicopter. They actually put him in a flight suit and brought him inside. That was really disappointing.
Now, did they put you in any kind of like pressurized thing or anything because of the altitude? No.
By the time they made the decision to pull me out, I was feeling fine, and the ranger was actually mapping out how we were going to get out of there so it'd be all safe. And the doctors in the emergency room made the call.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
So,
did you get a bill for that? Did you get a really large bill for that?
Nothing for the helicopter.
Oh, wow. Okay.
I got the ambulance ride from the edge of the national forest to the hospital in Visalia. So that was a couple grand.
Yeah, those helicopter bills can be really crazy.
Yeah, but they never sent a bill for the helicopter.
No. There you go.
And I'm not calling them up asking what,
No.
That's why I go by Chopper, so they can't.
If they do go, so send that to Colin Nielsen, aka.
Hey, trail names, buddy. What are we doing?
You can bleep that if you can bleep the name if you want to do that.
Very good. Hey, we're going to take another quick break, and when we come back, we're going to get to talking about some of the people you met along the way.
Sure.
See if we can get an update on some of our major players here in the film, see what they're doing now. Yeah. And we're also going to talk a little bit about the Muir Project and the Almost There podcast. So Stay tuned for that. We'll be right back. And welcome back. Hitting the third segment here. Got Jason Fitzpatrick of Mile and a Half with us tonight. Very special episode indeed, Chopper. And one of the things that was really interesting for me was just the accumulation of people that you had on the trip. It was like a snowball rolling downhill, just getting bigger and bigger, your group, that is. And you seem to add all kinds of people. First there was, I think it was David and Kelly.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Right. A couple of teachers that you picked up along the way who decided that they wanted to spend time with you guys and just keep going.
Yeah.
And then you met up with Tom and Kristen, who were brother sister painting duo. Had a very artistic side to themselves, painting, trying to capture what they saw out there on canvas. And then you had a bunch of friends meet up with you shortly towards the end there. I think was it Kearsarge heading towards Forester?
Yep.
And then you had quite this group on top of Mount Whitney with this final performance, which was just epic.
And one Japanese woman.
Yeah.
Say that again, Chopper.
And one Japanese woman who joined in.
Yes, Kazu. Yeah.
Kazu.
Yeah. We it was funny, like with Kazu especially, because we actually, you talk about the travel being, we flew her out from Japan to do her interview after, we just.
Oh, okay.
Because in our initial cuts, it's like, how do you do it? You know what I mean? None of us spoke Japanese, and her English wasn't great at the time. So like, it was kind of a language barrier. We didn't know she even really felt comfortable doing it. But then like talking to her, we flew her out and with a translator, we did her interview. But, we did actually pay to fly her from Japan and put her up for a couple weeks and took her hiking. And, and I guess if you want an update, she then a couple years later hiked the entire PCT by herself. So,
oh, wow.
Yeah, so pretty crazy. She's a pretty awesome person.
So you're,
pretty badass.
You're obviously still in contact with everybody?
Yep. Everyone, everyone does good, Kristen did the JMT again of the painters, Kristen and Tom, and talk to both of them every once in a while. Talk to Dave, Kelly every once in a while. Well, everyone's doing good. We all, still chat every once in a while, I think maybe one reason why, because you had I think the obstacles were, with the snow and the high levels were a little scarier maybe than they would be in a normal year, right? I think you always do tend to get groups, right? People come together, you know, shared miseries, shared experience. So people come together. But maybe this year, one of the things was, it felt good to have more people, you know, having your back, right? It felt like you maybe needed that, you know, it was a little more comfortable knowing you had, you know, like two or three other people along, or more people with you going over some of these obstacles.
Yeah, that's really noticeable when you got to crossing Bear Creek, and it was a lot of support required.
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, that was, you know, again, I'm the Sasquatch, so it wasn't that, for me, it wasn't that bad, but again, I'm 6'3", you know, I'm a big guy. So, you know, gosh, poor, you know, Kelly and Jen, you know, I mean, what's up to my waist, you know, was kind of up to their, you know, up to their like shoulders, up to their neck, you know? So yeah, I mean, and it was very, very, I don't know why they've never, at least to my knowledge, they've never built a bridge there. And I kind of don't know why. It seems like it would be kind of an easy place. And every time there's a snow year, you know, that it, you know, it gets really dangerous, and, you know, there's, you know, people going through, and obviously the year we did it, there, 2 girls fell in and washed down. They survived, I believe, but they got washed down a ways, and that was scary. So seems like a no-brainer to me to, you know, get in there and put something up there, you know. Other than that, everything felt
That'll be your
safe.
next project.
Yeah. yeah.
All right, Chopper, we've got them where we want them. What question have you always wanted to ask about mile and a half?
I mean, when you guys first set out to do it, did you expect the amount of appreciation and love that this movie has kind of gained over the years?
Oh, no. Well, one, we didn't even know it was going to be a movie. You know, we thought it was going to be like some kind of like, you know, again, like we weren't even going to be in the original thought of the movie. We weren't going to be in it. You know what I mean? It was going to be like a glory beauty piece on the, yeah. You know what I mean? So there was never any, you know, we always joke that, you know, if you watch the video for Almost There, that's the movie we set out to make. The 3-minute music video is the movie we set out to make, you know, and then Mile and a Half is the hour and a half behind the scenes piece on the 3-minute piece, you know? So definitely not. You know, and even right up until, you know, it's funny, you work so hard on it, you put so much of your time and your whatever in it. And, you know, in our case, you put your own money into it going, you know, as it's, you know, when you're making it, you know, it was kind of cool. Like I think we premiered at a film festival down here in LA called, certain brain fart all of a sudden, but Dances with Films, which is kind of a big independent film festival, you know, and they tend to have more sort of artsy, you know, artistic kind of flair, but it kind of worked out. And, you know, we started, I think we knew we had something because like we were doing events to, you know, during the Kickstarter campaign and stuff, we did a bunch of like in-store events and stuff down here where we had, you know, the musicians, PB and Bernie and the rest of Opus Orange play music, and we'd show cuts, and we created a bunch of our, you know, you have to make the stuff anyway. So we're like, hey, why not release a behind the scenes piece, you know, at this thing. So you come to the, you know, REI, or you come to the Adventure 16, you know, rest in peace, Adventure 16, very sad. You know, and you see the trailer, you see us, and we'd be there, you know, just to try to build awareness. And we had like crazy, you know, turnout for those things. So we kind of started with, all right, well, I guess it looks like might actually be something, you know? Sure. Yeah. And then our premiere was crazy. I mean, it was just insane. I mean, we sold out the first premiere in like less than an hour. And then we sold out a second one. I don't know if anything since has, but at least for the time, for that film festival that had been around for a good, you know, 15 years or so, we, you know, sold out. Most don't sell out. We sold out too within, you know, and I think sold more tickets than any other thing, you know. And then at the event we had, you know, there were like lines out the door, you know, and we had them running kind of concurrently, like staggered. So we had to run from one thing to the other, and, you know, and you know, and then the nice thing, you know, you hear people laugh when you want them to laugh. You feel it in the room, you know, you can feel the room, you know what I mean? And what you want people to feel, they seem to be feeling, you know. There were a few, just a side note, there were a few things that like, we didn't think were funny, or things that landed differently to us than they did to like audiences, like Z, like Z's whole thing. Like, man, like Rick and I were almost in tears, like literally in tears, crying that we were so sad watching that footage, you know, but people laugh in the audience when they see it. And we're like, whoa, it was just like very shocking to us, because it was such a different experience for us having been in it. And we were so sad
Yeah,
you know,
you're in Colony Meadows, and he's just walking down the highway by himself. It's like, okay,
yeah.
bye.
Yeah, you know, or even, you know, when he was behind us and he was filming himself, we didn't know he was doing that. You know what I mean? I didn't even know he was that far behind us, honestly. I mean, that was a hard day. And, you know, it was like snow. And a couple of people said, you should have left. I'm like, I didn't even know we left him. I was just trying to find where to go. I mean, I was exhausted and dead, you know. I mean, it was people, you know, didn't realize how hard it was for us too. It wasn't like we were like, you know, I mean, the trail disappeared in the snow every 200 feet, and you're going down a steep ledge, you know, into Tuolumne Meadows from like where Cathedral Lakes are, and half of that was snow and like treacherous, you know. So it was hard, you know, but it was a much different emotional thing for us. But yeah, that was kind of cool when that happened, and you know, and then so definitely never had any even inkling, or I mean, it far surpassed our, you know, what we imagined it would ever be, certainly, especially coming into it, you know. And then after, you have hopes and you hope that it does this, you know. I think we were all super proud of it and thought, you know, I think we made it for audiences, you know, if that audiences would like it and hikers would like it. We really thought about that, and that was a lot of the thought process creatively in making it. So
well, it seems like it still resonates with people, because we talk to, they love it, and it's one of the common themes of everybody's like, I watched mile and a half, and then I did this, and this. It's in everybody's list.
Yeah, no, it's you know, man, I mean, it's really just been, I mean, the stuff, you know, it's funny. It's like, you know, we made a little money on it, not a lot, you know, when you spread it, there are a lot of pieces to the pie. So we made, you know, we got our money back, which is great. And we get little checks every, you know, a couple times a year. We get a little check in the mail from still, and that's fantastic. But I mean, you know, I mean, the really amazing stuff is, you know, we got letters from like, you know, like quadriplegics, and from like, you know, soldiers with PTSD and those kinds of things. You know what I mean? You know, handicapped kids, people that couldn't do it, you know what I mean? Or people that, you know, always had wanted to do it and weren't able to, and we're too old now. Just all those kind of, man, we got so many of those kind of messages. And I mean, that was just like the most amazing thing about it, honestly. That's what really made it honestly worthwhile, you know.
Cool.
Was all that kind of response, you know. And these are just people loving it and enjoying it, you know. And I have people will quote me to me, which is always very funny, and I don't know what they're talking about. And they're like, "Oh yeah, didn't you say? Oh yeah, I guess I did say that in the movie. Yeah, okay, yeah, yeah."
Well, I've got a couple questions. One is the title of the film. Who came up with that? That is the most appropriate epic title for a hiking documentary.
So it was kind of the working title. And basically it's Jen and Kelly making fun of me, because most of the navigation sort of fell to me, and Durand a bit as well, but they would always ask me how much further, and I guess I kept just whatever. Oh, I think we're about a mile and a half. You know, I mean, that was just what I said. I think because I legitimately thought we were only like a mile and a half every time they'd ask, because that was around how far from camp. You really wanted to know how far camp was, right? Yep. So I kept saying that, and then they started teasing me about it, you know. And then I think when it just came, again, we were trying to think of titles. That was kind of the funny one, and it kind of matched the spirit. And you know, there was, you know, some question if it wasn't too esoteric, you know, or a little too out there. But at the end of the day, you know, I'm like, I'd rather have it be, I think we all kind of agreed we'd all rather have it be something different, right? Or something that people hear and go, huh? You know what I mean? And you know, or what's that mean? You know, and the people that know it would get it, right? And that, so that was kind of why we went with it. We also, I don't think we ever came up with anything we liked. To be honest, I don't recall what the other ones were, which obviously shows how bad the other ones were. So just by process of elimination and none of us being able to come up with anything more clever, you know, that's what we landed on.
Yeah. And then the film poster image of the boots just lined up like that. Again, another.
This is for your YouTube viewers. Hold on one sec.
Okay.
This there
it is.
There it is. Yep.
There you go. There.
He's holding up a giant poster of the.
That giant poster has been sitting there for like 8 years without moving until just now.
Just waiting
for this moment that I could show your YouTube viewers. Show it to your YouTube viewers. But yes, go ahead. Sorry, I didn't mean to.
No, it's okay. So again, the inspiration or the brainchild of that particular image, because it just captures it. I mean, it's.
That was all Jen. That was all Jen's idea. She's like, "Hey, can you take your boots off?" I'm like, "Why? I don't want to take my boots off," you know. And then, but yeah, she lined up those pictures. I mean, she honestly, like, I got to give Jen so much credit for like the marketing stuff and everything. I mean, she designed like all of that aesthetic stuff. And I mean, that kind of stuff is really underrated, how important that kind of stuff is, you know, in the launching of a movie and everything like that, and how important that is. And she did such an amazing job, and she worked really hard on it too. So I give full credit to Jen on that. Yeah. And that's her photo. Yeah. So that was kind of neat.
Nice. One more question. What does veteran hiker Tank, what does he whisper into newbie hiker Jason's ear before he starts on this epic trail? What did you wish you knew before embarking on this?
Gosh, I wish I knew how to move through snow better. That's for sure. For this one, I mean, obviously
there was an epic picture, just a snippet of the perspective of the sun cups that you guys had to deal with. It was just so striking. And anybody watching it, if they weren't familiar with sun cups, it would just go right by them. But that was such a severe sun cuppage. I don't even know how you describe it.
It was so hard to go through it, man. Oh yeah, no. And it was like, they're very hard to travel through, and those were really deep as well. So it's like, I remember like post-holing through one, landing in it, being like an egg and like, you know, an egg carton. I was like that inside the sun cup, just like nestled in there, you know.
It's a great image.
Yeah. No, but I mean, moving through that, it was very hard. I mean, obviously, if you want to say, what did I learn through backpacking? Again, a lot of it is just, you don't need that. You don't need this. You don't need this. Don't take this. Don't do that. You know, stay on the trail, know where you're going before. Those kinds of things that everyone learns maybe the hard way, hopefully not too hard, you know, or they hear about it and someone else's and learn it through someone else's hard experience. So mostly that stuff, but I was pretty seasoned. Some people got a misconception that was like our first backpacking trip. We even got some angry emails. You don't do that first. You know, losers don't know what they're doing. I'm like, I had done a third of that trail on other trips, and probably, God, I don't even know, 50 plus Sierra trips before that. So, I mean, I was very experienced.
I did notice you had a little disclaimer in one of your, at the very end.
Yeah.
About, you know, don't necessarily do the things that we did. What were some of the things that people push back on?
You know, it wasn't that bad at all. It was, I mean, the one thing we did, it's up at Squaw Lake. We camped on like vegetation, you know, on like a meadow area.
I noticed that. I was like, oh.
Yeah, but you know, we honestly didn't know. So there was that. So, hey, don't do that. We didn't do it intentionally. It wasn't like we were flipping off, you know, rules and regulations. That was just something we hadn't heard. And even like, honestly, part of my nickname Tank is because I would just walk through anything straight through the mud, straight through the water. And they didn't even realize that's what you're supposed to do. I'm like, no, that's what you do. Because if you walk to the side, you start deteriorating the side of the trail, and you get these side trails. And you look at like, say, Lyle Canyon, which looks like the 405 freeway now. It's so wide, you know, from all the tracks. You try to prevent that. So it might not be fun or comfortable to walk straight through the deep, muddy gorge, but that's technically what you're supposed to do. So that's what I was doing. And I think they probably got a little better about it after that. But that's how I got the name Tank. And then we did actually camp in one place that was closed for restoration by Garnet Lake, but that was not our fault. There were signs, and someone had stolen or gotten rid of the signs.
Or whatever, yeah.
So we didn't know. So we camped there without knowing that we weren't supposed to camp there, but that wasn't our fault. And, you know, they just told us, one of the rangers just told us somewhere along the line, we found out, they're like, yeah, just an FYI. And we're like, oh, we didn't see the signs. And we never in a million years would have camped there if we had seen the signs and knew that, you know. So shame on whoever tore down those signs and, you know, I don't know, some ruffian.
All right, very nice. So we talked about the Muir Project a little bit earlier. This was the organization that you guys formed as part of, you know, making the movie, right? And signing the checks, writing the checks, that kind of thing. What is that still an active organization? Are there still things happening with the Muir Project, or is it just kind of?
Well, I mean, I run the social media, so now it's more an Instagram, you know, occasional Facebook thing than anything. Got it. I mean, it still lives, and also obviously we still have the store that doesn't do much business anymore. We still have, you know, it's on Amazon Prime now, the film, if people want to see it. We have other projects that we've done, you know, and I think we hope to do something again. It's not like we don't want to. It's just, you know, it's like you gotta, again, you know, you're a pretty special thing if you're able to, you know, have 5 or 6 people take a month off and do something like that. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So I think eventually, you know, if something comes up or the right adventure comes up or the right opportunity comes up, we'd love to do something again. But it's not like we don't have like meetings. We have phone calls again, we just had one. Funny enough, I say we don't have meetings, and we just actually had a conference call like a week ago, again, because of the 10th anniversary, of us doing the hike, and like, hey, should we do something? What are we going to do? That kind of stuff. So, so it does, but it's not like a hugely active thing. I think it's more, it's there. I mean, we worked really hard to build that following. So like, for me, for my photography, for like, the podcast I'm co-hosting now, like this, for plugging this, you know what I mean? I mean, that does become an asset, and you do lose that asset if you leave it, right? Like if you don't post for 2 years, that following is gone, right? So, and I think, we would like to do something again, I think at some point, hopefully. So having it there and having it in place and at least having that much, and the business of it all is still intact. So it is still there, and it still does exist. It's just not as, as busy or as much a part of our lives as it was when we were making and then releasing Mile and a Half,
right,
for the first year or two once it was out,
Well, that's how you can raise money for the bridge at Bear Creek.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Now you have a place.
Hey,
Tank,
do me a favor. Your next conference call with the group, can you throw out my ideas about mile and 3/4, or mile and a freaking half?
No, absolutely.
I
kind of wonder. Yeah, I wonder if I honestly wonder if we would even. It's not that we couldn't do it, but it would be so different now. Like, because most of the stuff that's really good in that movie, we didn't think was ever going to be seen by anyone. Do you know what I mean? It's a very different thing when you're goofing off and someone's filming it than you're goofing off with a camera, knowing the camera's there and you're like aware of the camera. Does that make sense? So I mean, I don't mind. If you watch, I did release. If you watch No Attack, which was is on our Vimeo page, if you want to find it, the Muir Project Vimeo page. We did also release a behind the scenes, which I initially made to kind of release with Unsupported because we needed stuff. I re-released. Do you guys know Chris Smead? Have you had Chris Smead on the show, or do you know who he is? He made the High Sierra Trail documentary, and he did the. His stuff is really good. You guys should reach out to him, and people should search out his stuff. It's really good and entertaining if you like hiking movies. But we screened his film, The High Sierra Trail, with Unsupported, and then also this. I did this behind the scenes of the making of No Attack, which is the closest thing to Mile and a Half since Mile and a Half, because it is me, Rick, and Jen farting around a lot, making the movie, the serious drama movie we made about Jim and Tip, who you'll remember from Mile and a Half as the older gentleman we met on the trail. So, right. So check those out. And if you want to see us fooling around like Mile and a Half, check out that behind the scenes piece. It's just up on our Vimeo page for anyone to watch. So,
all right, very good. Tell us about your podcast, the Almost There podcast.
Yeah, it was the Almost There Adventure podcast, named after the Opus Orange song, which is our theme song. So we're still milking PB for all he's worth. Musical genius, awesome human being. It's hosted by myself and Jeff Hester, who you guys have had on the show.
Yep.
Who's the SoCal hiker and runs Six Pack of Peaks, and then our friend Severia Tilden, who runs Adventure Us Women. That's like Adventure US Women, and she's like does a lot of amazing events for women in the outdoors to like empower women and get them all outside and all kinds of cool fun stuff. So yeah, it's like the three of us, and it's very broad. It's not just hiking. It's kind of like we have everyone, from cyclists to mountain bikers to outdoors people, hikers, trail runners. So it's kind of a broad thing. We've had we kind of try to keep it broad, basically. Just anyone we think will be someone interesting to talk to for an hour. They're more than welcome to come on. So that's been what it's been about.
Yeah. How long have you guys been doing that? How many seasons do you have, or episodes?
Around 30 out now. A year. We do it every other week.
Okay.
And then we do 4 in March. We did 4 in March last year. We're doing 4 in March this year. For Women's Month, we do 4 episodes, all with women as our guests to celebrate Women's History Month and that kind of stuff. So we're doing that again. But yeah. So, and they're about an hour long, kind of similar to this, not too different. We don't do the YouTube thing, but
You guys are going to become arch rivals.
Yeah, I know. It's funny, anyone that thinks that, it's kind of there's so little content kind of created in the space, right? You'd need to go 100 more podcasts or films or whatever to match probably what the demand is, honestly, right? And the money isn't there to do that. People's time isn't there to do that. So I never think that way. And I always, I think the outdoor film community, I'm assuming hopefully the podcast community as well is pretty welcoming and pretty whatever, and we're all just trying to help each other out and have fun. I want to listen to once I can drive places again, I want to listen to this more, I did listen to this going through northern Nevada through the middle of nowhere in the desert. So that was kind of neat when I listened to Jeff's episode. But yeah, I mean, we all want more content, right? We haven't reached that. There's no money in it anyway, as you guys know. So there's not like we're fighting over that, and it's not like TV networks or film studios who, in order for their $300 million budget movie to make money, they have to crush the competition because they can't afford those butts in the seats, losing however many millions of those people, right? And they lose the money. That's not what this is like at all. It's like we're all.
This is everybody sharing the same information on the same
exactly
media and crossover and building networks.
Yeah,
it's all the same people talking about the same stuff and having a good time about it.
Exactly, and it's fun, right? I mean, hikers are usually pretty nice people, right?
Well, one or two of them, maybe not.
Yeah, a couple of them, not all of them. There's a few.
All right, hey Tank, you know where we are?
Where are we?
We are at that part of the episode where I ask you for your pro tip insight of the week. I hope you've got something stored up for us, some piece of wisdom, hiking wisdom that you can share with our listeners to make their next adventure that much better. Okay,
yeah. My pro tip is going to involve, and this is even a little throwback to the one piece of gear, the initial piece of gear I said you should bring, and that's snacks. Snacks are incredibly important, and bring in the right kind of snacks. A lot of people think you need to bring some form of healthy snack or some kind of whatever. But I'm going to say no. Bring whatever it is you crave and the most palatable snacks you can for a couple of reasons. You're going to be burning, especially if you're covering miles, you're going to be burning a lot of calories. That's not a thing. You're going to be sweating a lot. So if you get really salty and really delicious, really tasty, like snacks that are easy to eat, because also at altitude, you sort of, your appetite goes away. So the more palatable, the more delicious, the more whatever are your snacks. And make sure to eat snacks while you're hiking and replenish your calories. You'll have more energy at the end, and it'll be a more enjoyable. You'll be less hangry, when you get to your campsite, and you'll enjoy it more.
You hear that, Chopper? You'd be less angry when you get to the
campsite.
campsite.
My own heart.
Yeah.
Eat more.
Exactly, and more often.
Yes, that's true. I got into the habit of just having like a bag of trail mix in my pocket. And I would just nibble on it on the way.
And you know what I love are those like cheese cracker peanut butter. They have peanut butter and cheese peanut butter ones, and they're super. I would never like you eat one here and they're too salty and they're it's not something that I want to eat here. But up there, you're like, oh my god, these things are amazing. They're super delicious and filling. So things like that, like trail mix, especially get the trail mix with some chocolate in it, right? And
so it melts, big deal.
Exactly. Well, get the M&M ones, and then they won't melt in your hand. But that kind of stuff, and I cycle a lot too. I do road riding, and I did a fancy ride, and a pro cyclist, pretty well known one, came up alongside me and sucked down a gel. Heard his beep on his watch, and he sucked down a gel, and we chatted for a second before he dropped me, and he's like, "Oh yeah, every 45 minutes, the alarm goes off, reminds himself to eat something." So hiking, same thing, right? Keep that effort going, keeps you going.
You're just burning calories.
Exactly. Yeah.
Very good. So there you have it. That's it. This incredible bonus episode for season 2 is in the books. Hope our listeners enjoyed our time with Tank, and I want to thank him for joining us this week. Tank, how can our listeners keep up with you on social media, and where can they find updates on your latest adventures?
Well, at the Muir Project is, of course, the same Instagram handle as Mile and a Half and all that, and I still post weekly, a couple times a week usually. The Muir Project on Facebook as well. I don't post there as often, but who knows if we start getting busy, we'll do more there. And then again, I have the podcast. That's the Almost There Adventure Podcast. That's Apple, wherever you find your podcast, that's there. And we have a Instagram. It's not as big, but the almost there _AP. And that's pretty much it.
All right. Very good. Remember to check out the pod on social media as well. We are on Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, and Twitter. And if you have comments or clips you want to share, you can send it to me at johnfreakinmuir@gmail.com. Tank, I'm also looking to give our listeners your recommendation for a book, a movie, a documentary, a website, a YouTube channel, something that can keep them connected to the outdoor adventures. Calling this our adventure media recommendation. And so if we're not going to recommend Mile and a Half, which is it's a given, you need to watch that, or Unsupported,
included with Prime now. You can give us money, which we don't mind, if you go to our www.mmah.com. We sell digital downloads, but it is included with Prime, so
nice.
Mhm.
You've already dropped a number of tidbits about adventure media out there during this episode, but do you have anything else on the shelf that you might be able to
I
recommend?
got two. Look at this.
Okay.
Look at this. How's this for readiness?
Wow.
So Free Outside is the one I dropped. That's Jeff Garmeyer. I don't know, whichever way's up. But yeah, so this is great. He's a good friend. And then The Adventure Gap. It's written by my friend James Edward Mills. It's about diversity in the outdoors, which is, you know, a pretty important topic and that kind of stuff. So both are great. Give them a read.
Very good. We'll check those out. That's a wrap from the John Freakin' Muir studio. Any shout outs to friends and family, Jason?
Yeah, I'm going to shout out to Eric Soto, the mutual friend of Chopper and I. Chopper shepherded his kids through high school, right? Am I saying that right?
The kids were the same age.
Yeah.
I think Eric's youngest and two of our kids were in the same class.
Yeah, so he's the one that kind of set this up and put us in touch. Raider fan, super awesome guy. So I'm going to shout out to Eric Soto.
Very good.
Nice. I was the one that actually did the shepherding.
Oh, okay.
I was the school employee. So.
Oh, that's right. Okay, so
Yeah.
sorry, Doc. I knew one of you.
I'll take credit for it. What the heck?
Yeah. Okay.
All right. Well, thank you for tuning in. Always remember the trail is the trail. It doesn't care if you want to go downhill. It doesn't care if it's almost dark and you're looking for a campsite. The trail is the trail. Embrace the suck.